Hello guys and welcome back to our computer networks course. So last time we said that we would be diving into seeing how our data is actually transferred, right? But before we can actually do that, we need to understand some things, right? And those are basically how your buffers work and how your windows work, right? So let's get right into it and understand how those things actually work. All right, so we by now know that our TCP is a two-way communication process, right? So we know that the sender can be sending as well as receiving at any given point, right? And what that basically means is, let's take a bigger diagram, right? Let's take a more zoomed in version of a diagram. So this, let's say, is my application. Okay, this is my process. Okay, then I get my transport layer. Let's make a transport layer much bigger. Okay, then is my transport layer. Now this guy sends information, okay, and this guy forwards it to the next layer, and it makes sure that this information reaches the transport layer at the receiving end, right? Okay. And it is this guy's job to make sure that the receiving process receives that information. Okay. So now we said that this communication can be is matlab, it can receive as well as send at the same time, right? It does not need to wait, right? So what that means is while it is receiving, it can be sending. Okay, that is what it means. And that means that it should have two channels, right? It should have two channels, one in which it can receive stuff and other through which it can send stuff, right? That is how you can make sure that one does not need to wait for the other, right? If it is only one channel, you will have to wait, okay, let me send everything out, only then will I be able to receive things, right? So we don't want that. So yeah, we make sure that there are two channels, and so that we can receive and send at the exact same time, right? So this is done through buffers, right? So you have two buffers. So let me do that here, right? Let's assume a circular buffer, right? So let's see. Let's do something like this. Okay. So let's say this is our buffer, right? And this one is our receiving buffer. Let's reverse them actually. This one is our sending buffer and this one is our receiving buffer, right? So now when my information comes in, it gets stored in here, right? It would get stored in here. Next information here, next information here, right? And I would be maintaining a pointer that says right here now, okay, right here now, okay, something of the sort. Or I would be maintaining the last address, right? And I would be maintaining the first address. I would be doing all those things to make sure that I can access it in a proper way. Okay. Same with the receiving window, right? This is sending window, so it receives information from my application. Okay. This is the receiving window, so it sends information to my application and it receives it from the receiving end's transport layer, right? Okay. So information from this guy comes in, gets stored in here, and whenever the application wants it, or whenever the transport layer protocol says send information, it would send it to your application. All right. So the same thing is also existing in our receiving end, right? So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, and let's see how things are actually working. Okay, so now you know that there are two buffers and they are storing some information that is to relay information between your application and your the sending application and the receiving application, right? However, it is not necessary that the rate at which this guy produces information is the same as the rate at which this guy consumes information, right? So maybe this guy produces 4 bytes per second, right? And this guy can only consume 1 byte per second, right? So we need to take these things into consideration when we are when we are sending stuff, when we are receiving stuff, right? So we will talk about this in a bit, right? When we talk about Windows more elaborately, that is when we will be discussing these things. But for now, all you had to know was that there are two buffers, one that receives and one that sends. Okay. So let's move on to what our windows are. Okay. So let me straighten out my buffer. So if I straighten out my buffer, I would get something of the sort of an array, right? That is what would happen. Okay, this is what I would get if I straighten this out. This is what I would get, right? So out of this, there are matlab in your buffer na there are four types of things stored, right? In your buffer, this is your buffer. Okay, in your buffer there are four types of things stored. Let's see. Okay, the first thing that can be stored is sent and acknowledged. Okay, then you have sent and not acknowledged. Okay, then you have sent, but this is my bad. This is not sent. It is not sent. Okay, not sent. Okay, and then you might have empty space or uh, data that cannot be sent as of now. Okay. So these four things are differentiated with the window, right? Let me tell you how. So again, you have something of the sort of an array after I stretch out my buffer, right? I get something of this sort. Okay. And then for my window, I would have a starting point. Okay. Let's say this. Let's change colors. So I would have a starting point and I would have an ending point. Okay. Now inside of my window, right? This is my starting point, right? This is start and this is end. Okay. This is for my window, right? This is my window. So this is window. Okay, window. Now inside of my window, I can have two types of information. This guy and this guy. Okay. So I can have information that has already been sent, but I have not received my acknowledgement for it. Okay. Or I can have information that I can send. Okay. There can be information that I can send right now. If you let me send it right now, I can send it. Okay. Outside of your buffer, you have the other two things, right? So these guys would be stuff that has been sent, and it has been acknowledged, right? So these guys have been sent as well as we have received acknowledgements for them, right? All right. So the fourth type of thing is information that cannot be sent right now. And there are reasons for that, why this cannot be sent right now, and we would be discussing those. But for now, just know that your window contains two types of things: information that has been sent but has not been acknowledged, or information that can be sent right now. Okay, right now. Outside of a window, you can have information that has been sent and acknowledged, and you can have stuff that has not been sent but cannot be sent right now either. Okay. So that was what your window basically is. Let's talk about some more stuff as to why the situation occurs, right? Why we can or cannot send things. Okay. So let's move a bit down. All right. So let's write stuff. So this was sent, acknowledged. Okay. This was sent, not acknowledged. Okay. This was can be sent right now. Okay. And then we had this guy that is cannot be sent right now. Okay. So now why can these guys not be sent, and how do you decide what the size of your window is, right? So let's take a tap and bucket example once again. Let's do that, right? So we had a tap. ठीक है, we had a pipe and we had a bucket, right? And this guy, these guys all would have some windows, right? So window is basically the amount that it can tolerate, ठीक है? So the limit that it can tolerate is basically your window, right? So this guy is your sender, so let's call this sender window, ठीक है? This guy is your receiver, so let's call this receiver window, ठीक है? And we'll get back at network after this, right? So for now, let's just consider sender window and receiver window, okay? So you know that I should not send anything that this guy cannot receive, right? What's the point of sending if this guy, the one that I'm sending to, cannot even receive it, right? What's the point? So we make sure that this guy can receive stuff, ठीक है? मतलब his window has space, ठीक है? His window has space so that he can receive stuff, right? So basically we are saying that if your receiver cannot receive it, just don't send it, ठीक है? So that is what it is. Let's do this. So ठीक है. So this was my window, right? This let's take an example of this form. I have my sender, I have my receiver, ठीक है? So I send some information, ठीक है? This guy acknowledges it. Let's do it properly. So I send some information and this guy acknowledges it, ठीक है? So this one is what my send and acknowledge part, right? So initially when I sent it, so let's do it in the proper manner, right? So right now my window starts from starting, right? Because I have sent nothing, so my window starts from starting, and it can be however many. I have sent nothing right now, right? So everything inside my window is yellow, and everything outside it is blue, right? We don't have white, we don't have red yet because we have not sent anything, right? So matlab this is basically my window right now. uh this is basically my window right now. ठीक है, everything inside my window is yellow. मतलब this is basically my buffer right now, ठीक है? And everything outside is blue, ठीक है? And this is my window, ठीक है? From here till here. So what happens when I send this? So I sent my first bit of data. So this was yellow here, right? And I sent it, so it becomes white. That means I have sent it, but I have not received an acknowledgement for it, ठीक है? So this guy would become white. This is what happens. And then this guy is going to send me an acknowledgement. Okay, this guy sends me an acknowledgement. That means I have sent this and also received an acknowledgement for it. So this one becomes red. Now, since this is no longer required to be kept inside your window, inside your consideration, you would move the window forward, right? So now this window is no longer valid. We move our window forward. That means this guy from blue would turn to yellow, right? From I cannot send this right now, it turns into I can send it whenever you want me to. Okay. Now let's see. I send this. Okay. I send this and I do not receive its acknowledgement, but before I actually receive its acknowledgement, I send this as well. Okay. So this goes as well. Now I receive acknowledgement for just my second one. Okay. So I just receive an acknowledgement for the second part. So I receive acknowledgement for this guy. I do not receive acknowledgement for this guy. So what happens is this turns red, but I cannot move my window. And the reason for that is this guy has not been acknowledged yet. Okay. So we must keep this guy into consideration, right? Why? because what if this never reached here, what if this never happened, it got discarded, it got lost, matlab it got corrupted, something happened, right? So I would have to send this guy again, right? I would have to send this guy again. So I keep this in my window, because if I need to send it, I would have to be quick, right? I don't want to move my window just to do all those things, है ना? So I will keep it in my eyes till the time it is not required anymore, till the time I receive confirmation that yes, its job is done, it is not needed anymore. ठीक है? So till that time I would keep it in my window. ठीक है? So that was why your send act and मतलब you should be able to understand why these three work, right? How these three are working. ठीक है? So what about the blue bits? So why can I not why is this cannot be sent right now? And the reason for that is your window has a specific size. Only these many things can be kept into consideration, and that was decided by your sender window, your receiver window, and there's also third thing, that is your congestion window. Okay, so all these things together would be deciding your window size. And if something cannot be fit inside your window and you send it, again the same situation would arise, right? If I were to send this, I would never know if this reaches or not, right? If I would never know if it reaches or not. ठीक है, so we मतलब you only can touch things that are inside your window, right? Whatever is outside your window, you don't care about those. ठीक है, so this part outside my window, I don't care about it. This part is also outside my window, I don't care about it. What I care about is acknowledgements for these and sending these. ठीक है, so that was all about Windows. There is a little more, and we would be discussing this in more depth now. So let's go ahead. Alright, so before moving forward, let's do a simulation of sorts so we can understand how things are working, right? And you would also understand better why we took circular buffers, and you would also understand one more thing better. And let's see what that is, right? So let's go ahead and do a sort of simulation, right? So let's write down our four things, right? What did we have? So we had sent and acknowledged. Okay. Then we had sent and not acknowledged. Okay. Then we had can send, and we also had cannot send. Okay. So let's see. We wanted to send some stuff, so we have created what? We have created a connection, right? There was my sender, there was my receiver. We did the three-way handshake, right? So now my sender knows what the window size should be, right? If you guys recall a few videos ago, I told you how we are doing that, right? How we are getting all these informations. So by now we know what a window size is. Okay. So let's say my start happens to be right here. Okay. So now I would know where my window end would lie, right? So let's say that the communication said that my window size could only be 5. Okay. So I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I say this is my window end. Okay. Now there is one application behind this guy, right? There's some process, and he starts sending me information. Okay. The process sends me information, and what would happen is we are going to fill this thing up. Okay. So again, we are simply putting stuff in here, right? We are not actually sending it, because this guy needs to set what? He needs to send a push flag to force us to send, right? Otherwise we wait till it is a comfortable time, right? We would discuss why this is actually done later on, but for now just know that it is done. Okay, so this guy sends me some information, right? That is all yellow. Okay, that is all we can send it. Okay, so let's say he sends me three bits of information, right? 3 bytes of information, and I have not yet sent anything, right? So after that, what happens is I send something. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm saying let me send this guy. Okay, this guy has now been sent. This guy has also been sent. Okay, these two guys have been sent. After that, what happens is my process sends me some more information, right? So I add those. Okay. Now he sends me more information than my window can hold, right? So what happens is the rest of it the rest of it becomes stuff that I cannot send right now. ठीक है? So that is what happens. Now what's going to happen is some time later, some acknowledgements are going to come, right? So let's say my second acknowledgement comes, right? This guy's acknowledgement comes. Okay. So I receive an acknowledgement for my person two, for my second package, right? So I receive an acknowledgement. Okay. So this guy becomes red now. Okay. He is sent as well as acknowledged. But I cannot move my window. Why? Because this guy has not been acknowledged yet, right? So I wait. I can definitely send these guys, right? So I send them. Okay, let's send them. Now what happens is, let's send a few more, right? Let's send this guy as well. Now what happens is, I receive acknowledgement for my 3 and 4 as well, right? I receive acknowledgement for 3, I receive acknowledgement for 4. Okay. So these guys have also become acknowledged, right? Now thing is, I know by now that if I have not received this guy's acknowledgement, that means something wrong has occurred, right? So what would happen is I will resend this guy. Okay, I am resending this guy. I resend this, and what happens is it finally would reach, and I would finally get an acknowledgement for 1, and this guy would also become sent and acknowledged, right? So after this is all done, what happens is my window shifts, right? My window would shift, right? So what happens is my window would shift. Okay. I should group. Let's actually do it just manually, right? So my window would shift. Okay. It would have been easier to show you how it just rotated through, but let's just shift it manually, right? So my window would shift here, and I would say 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This is where my end is. Okay. Now the thing is, these need not be removed, right? Because when more and more and more information comes, these guys would get overwritten, right? These guys would get overwritten eventually. Okay. When we reach our window now, when we strike our window, we would say, okay, stop. I cannot accept anymore. Okay. So that is how things are. And you would be, when that situation occurs, let's see how it would occur first, right? And when the situation occurs, we would say, my dear process, please stop. I cannot accept anymore. Okay. So now we have received acknowledgement for all the stuff, and we have moved those to our red zone. Okay. Then everything inside my window again becomes what? Yellow. Okay. Yellow is what? Stuff that I can send. Okay. Stuff that I can send becomes yellow. Okay. So this is all stuff that I can send. Okay. So now my process by now has gone crazy and sends me a lot of information. Okay. So let's see what happens then. Now I reach this guy, and I will override these, right? Because these are no longer required. Okay. And now I hit this, and I want to add more data, I want to add more data, I want to add more data, but I cannot, right? Because these things need to be preserved. These things need to be preserved. So what happens is you would tell your program to stop sending me data, stop. Okay. So that is done, and you would empty some space for yourself, and then you would accept more data, right? Okay, so hopefully that made it pretty clear how stuff happens, right? That should have also made it clear why we took a circular buffer and then said let's spread it out and make it a linear one, right? Because you're just, you're rotating. If you take an array, you would have to keep rotating it, keep rotating it, keep rotating. Instead, you could do what? Simply assume a circular buffer to make things visually easier, right? All right, so moving on, let's see one more thing, right, that we talked about. Let's see. So we sent stuff, we got acknowledgement for them, right? And this is all happening simultaneously, right? This is your window, doesn't necessarily need to have only acknowledgement, right? My receiver end can also send some information, right? And then I would have to add on some acknowledgements here, right? I would have to add on some acknowledgements and send those as well, right? Okay. So that is what it is. Let's see. So I am sending stuff. I am receiving acknowledgements. When I receive acknowledgement, my window shifts right. All right. So while I can while I can shift my window to right side, right? So let's also talk about this. So when you have a window now, this is your expanding, this is your shrinking, right? This is closing, and this is so you do not want to mess with your left hand, right? You do not want to mess with this guy, right? You do not want to recede this guy. Okay, that may cause some trouble, right? So whenever you want to make some space, you might extend this guy, or you can move this way, you can move this guy, but it is not recommended, and this should never be done. Okay, so that is all about buffers and windows. Let's meet in the next lecture. Hello guys, and welcome back to our computer networks course. So we have already discussed flow control in quite a bit of detail, right? And we have been using sliding window all this time, but we haven't really gone in depth in that, right? So in this video, let's do exactly that. All right, so what I've created here is your application layer, and then this is your TCP buffer. All right, so this is the buffer maintained in your TCP layer, right? And then this is your TCP layer buffer, and this is your application, right? The representation is slightly off, and that is because your application layer is above your application layer is above your what do you call it, above your transport layer, right? ठीक है. So to actually understand how this is happening, we need to understand how a window is maintained inside your TCP layer, right? So let's see. I said there are a few things to take note of, right? First of all, you have your start, okay? Then you would also have your finish, okay? And then there would also be a third thing, and that would be a current, right? That is how you know where this is your basically how big your window is, and this would be where you need to add information now, right? So let's see. Let's assume that a sender and a receiver have already communicated and created a channel, and let's see. Perhaps let's decide on a window size of 5. Okay, so we decided on a window size of 5, like this. All right. Let's do this as well. Okay, so right now we know where our window starts, where our window ends, and where I need to add more data, right? So let's say my application says add 1 to it. Okay, hello, I want to send 1 is what it says, right? So we would be adding 1, right? And then this guy would shift over. Okay, this guy would shift over. He would now point to a new location where you can add more information, right? So let's say my application says add 2. ठीक है, मतलब send 2. Then this guy would shift again. ठीक है. Then my application might say send 3, and so forth and so on, right? So forth and so on. What happens after your 4 and 5, right? So you said add 3, so your pointer moved. Then you said add 4, so your pointer moved, right? And now you said add 5, so your pointer moved. Okay, so your pointer moved, but your window is still the same size, है ना? So what happens when I would say send 6? Again, my pointer would move, right? We have space in buffer, so my application can afford to add more things, right? My application can keep on adding more things till the time I run out of space in my buffer, right? Till the time I don't run out of space in my buffer, my application can keep adding things, right? What about sending stuff? Sending stuff can only happen with what is inside of my window, right? So maybe our TCP decides at this point that it needs to start sending stuff, right? So let's see, let's use yellow, and let's say this guy decides, okay, let's send stuff. So what it does is it sends one. So let's create a window here. Okay, something of this sort is what we have. Okay, something of this sort is what we have. Now it is going to send stuff whatever is inside the window, right? So 1 2 3 4 5, it sends them, and my receiving window would receive those things, right? So 1 would come in, 2 would come in, 3 would come in, 4 would come in, 5 would come in. Okay, so what happens is, let's remove this guy for now. Okay, let's say my application does not want information at this point, he is not reading anything. So 1 comes in, I see 1. Okay, then 2 comes in, I see 2. By this point I have sent acknowledgement for 1. Okay, so I have sent acknowledgement for 1 by now. Okay, my acknowledgement has left this place. So when that happens, my window would shift. Okay, my window shifts. Now 3 4 and 5 have come. Okay, so 3 4 and 5 have come. So now I would send, well, I would try to send acknowledgement for all of these as well, है ना? So same thing happens for 3 4 5. Okay, and acknowledgements keep going. As soon as acknowledgement leaves me, I am going to do what? I am going to slide my window. Okay, I am going to keep on sliding my window as soon as I send acknowledgement, right? Because I don't need to care about them anymore, right? I don't need to care about them anymore. I have already received these things. Okay. As soon as I receive acknowledgement here, so as soon as one's acknowledgement reaches here, what's happening is I would shift my window. Okay. Now 6 comes into play. So as soon as I received one's acknowledgement, this guy gets out, everything else shifts up, and a 6 is there, right? So I have not sent 6 yet. I would be sending 6. Okay. So 6 is received here. By this time, acknowledgement for 2 3 and 4, my bad. Okay, so by this time, acknowledgement for 2 3 and 4 have also arrived. So my sliding window would slide a little more. Okay, it would slide a little more, and by that time 6 reaches here. Okay, because I have received acknowledgement for it, I do not have to keep it in my view anymore, right? So I don't want to know whether or not these exist any longer, right? I have already acknowledged them, I have already got an acknowledgement for them. Okay, so what would happen if this guy sent 5's acknowledgement to me but it never reaches me? So now I would be resending this thing. Okay, so now I would be resending 5. But this guy has already received 5, है ना? This guy has already received 5. Okay, so the windows are decided based on the fact that by the time I do something with that information, this guy would know, right? So for example, this guy, let's say, has a sequence number of 6001 on him, right? And I am sending him 5 with sequence number 5001, right? So he already knows that he has this information, and that the thing that I'm sending him is a duplicate. So what he's going to do is send me an acknowledgement for 5. Okay. So hopefully this is making things clearer, right? We are sliding our window when we receive acknowledgement, and we are sliding our window when we receive information, है ना, when we receive our data. ठीक है, so we are simply saying that these are no longer required to be in consideration. So what happens to when our application wants information? So when that happens, he would start reading at wherever his pointer initially was, right? So initially it was on the 0th position, so my app starts reading now. So I would need to my window is actually on my receiving end, not shifting. It is not sliding, but instead what's happening is it is being shortened. So what actually happens, instead of shifting your window like this, what actually happens is your boundary changes, right? Why does it change? And the reason for that is this information needs to be maintained, right? What I said was, whenever in our previous talk we talked about this, right? We said whenever if something is not in our window, it can be overwritten, right? So had I moved our window like this, so had I moved our window, what would have happened is that these guys could have been overwritten, right? So what I do is, instead of moving my window, I close my window. Okay, I close my window and I make its left end shorter, right? So I would say that my window size has decreased. When my application would consume this information, I would say, okay, now I have more space in my window, right? So I would open my window. Okay. When this guy would consume more information, I would say that, okay, now I don't need this information anymore, so I have more space now. I can receive more. Those are not to be taken into consideration. So for our sender end, we had what? We had your in our window we had sent and not acknowledged right? And we had not sent. Okay. For our receiving end, technically speaking, we only have information that has not been acknowledged yet, right? So it has been received. So this guy would have received but not acknowledged what's in your window, right? But the stuff that has not yet been consumed by your application should also be maintained, right? The stuff that my application has not used yet is also maintained. That is why instead of sliding your window, what you do is you shorten your window, right? And this space would contain data that has to be maintained for now, and it needs to be existing there. You cannot be overwriting this. Okay. So that was all about our sliding window. So let's move on to our next topic. So in terms of what is actually happening here is that your window actually closes and then opens, right? So it closes and then it opens. So when I say it closes, what I mean is, let's see. So this is your window. When I say your window closes, it means that it moves its left wall further inwards, right? So let's have a little different representation, right? Okay. So this is your window. Let's say when I say your window closes, it means that this is what is happening. Okay, your window becomes smaller. Okay, it becomes smaller. This is your closing. Okay, it always closes from your left hand, right? And then when I say it opens, it simply means your right hand moves forward. Okay, so this is your window opening. Okay, that was your window opening. Okay, so again, this let's do this. So the okay. So this is your closing and this is your opening. Okay. Closing is simply shortening your window and opening is making it bigger, right? So that was your closing and opening, right? So I said that your window is sliding, right? And that is slightly wrong because it does not slide. What happens is it closes from your left end, है it would close from my left end and then it would open from my right end. Okay, so it gives the illusion of sliding, but what's actually happening is that it slides over, right? So let me show you. So if I have something like this here, let's use different colors, right? Like this, what would happen is, first thing, my window is going to close and then my window is going to open. So it seems like it slided over, right? It closes and then it opens. So it looks like it slided over, right? This is the same thing that is happening on a receiver end as well, but on our sender end, and it happens instantly, right? So it closes, then it opens, it closes, then it opens, right? On a receiver end, it does not open again till the time my data has been consumed, right? So matlab it closes and it would wait. It would wait till this guy, this space is empty. Okay, it would wait till the time the space is empty, and then it would slide over. Then it would slide over. Okay. So that was how your sliding window works. Okay. You close and then you open. You close and then you open. The closing, when you close and when you open, depends upon which side you're talking about, right? If you're on the receiver end, both of those things happen instantly, right? You close then you open, right? One after other. On the receiver end, you would close when you receive, right? So what happens is like let's see. So I have this, right? And I don't have anything else, right? So I receive information one. And I say, okay, let's close. And then I receive two. Okay, I should use this. And then I say close. And then I receive three. And then I say close. By this time, my application says I want the first part. Okay, so that means I got some space, so I open a bit. Then my application says give me two. So I open a bit more. Then I receive four. So I close a bit. I receive five. So I close a bit more. I receive six. So I close a bit more. Okay. Then my application takes three. It takes four. So I open a bit. Okay. Then he takes five. He takes six, and I would open even more, right? So that is how your sliding window is actually working, right? In even more detail, the way it actually works is it maintains two variables, right? So it would maintain your starting point and it would maintain your ending point, right? And that is how you always know that ending minus starting is always going to give you the size, and this is given by your receiving window and your congestion window. Okay, you would take the minimum of these two and we would get our window size. So you know how big the window should be. Okay, and on the receiving end, again, you will know if you have space, right? If your application has consumed things, you would move forward. All right.